Paragold has luxury homes' largest selection of outdoor furniture, lighting, decor, and more. Discover pieces in every style from more than 2,000 of design's best brands. Shop in-store or online at Paragold.com. Paragold, luxury lives here.
One sunny day, a honeybee was merrily buzzing through an orchard when she stopped to collect nectar from a mystery apple blossom. She passed that pollen along to a Honeycrisp tree, and months later, the sugar bee apple was born. Naturally sweet, with layered notes of caramel, honey, molasses, and the perfect crunch. The world has embraced the sugar bee apple, a pure delight for snacking and baking. Download our new free recipe book and find a store near you at hellosugarbee.com. Sugar bee apples, from bee to you.
To the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Yiggity-yo! It's Friday, August 7th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. You're probably really intimidated by me right now, Betz.
I mean, there's not many people that intimidate me in this world, but when I logged on today, not that I would ever log off, but theoretically speaking, if I logged on and saw you looking back at me with that haircut, dude, I'm turning around, I'm walking the other direction. You went, so the one of the biggest storylines of the offseason, you know, people have talked about Deshaun's dribbling, you know, there's other fantasy headlines, but to me, the headline of the summer has been Kyle's hair. Goes from just a normal looking dude to frosted tips to now a full buzz cut, dude. I mean, I don't even know who you are anymore.
I'm in a cultural moment right now for myself. And I did realize it because I kind of look intimidating. Like the buzz is short. And I look like somebody probably from like American History X. Like I'm about to just take somebody down. I'm about to just drop kick somebody in the face. So if this is intimidating for you, it's intimidating for me because I'm a pretty approachable guy. But right now I look scary.
I'm telling you, dude, I would not mess with Kyle. Not today. Or tomorrow.
Oh, man.
Or the next
Think
day.
Think about me on the baseball field. I'm about to start coaching my son's team.
No big deal.
I feel like the kids they see authority, you know? They see this man and they go, I got to listen to this guy as I'm rounding third base.
That's right. That's right.
I like to think of myself, you know, as somebody that, you know, walk in the room. This guy right here. People listen.
Now, were you bullied about the frosted tips, or like what happened with the decision to go buzz cut here?
It did not help. I mean, you guys heard me last week on the podcast if you listened, but my voice was shot. So it did not help that I had a week straight of strep throat. Just horrible strep throat. And so when I looked at myself in the mirror, just being a horrible mess, and then I saw the hair, I was like, yeah, this is bad. But
what have I done?
I just like, who am I now? Like, what have I become? So I think it was just part of like getting rid of the sickness part. I was like, that is my former life. But maybe next summer I'll go back to frosted tips.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I love the storyline. Like I said, it keeps me engaged. You know, just what is Kyle going to show up with today? Sometimes the frosted tips, sometimes the buzz cut. A long time ago, you used to have really long hair. I don't know if people realize that, but you had some nice luscious locks.
Yeah, you can't let them know what my next move is. You know, I like to say that too with Emma all the time. She's like, my goal is like next week. I don't want you to know exactly what I'm doing. I'm juking. I keep you on your toes.
Yeah, you sure do.
All right. On this episode, we will look back at our DFS and betting lessons from this past year and kind of project forward because we are in August, where our shows transition a little bit from mostly best ball to talking DFS strategy. We have an episode coming up in a couple of weeks where Chris Cash, who writes a lot of our DraftKings stuff, will be on there as well. And it is a really fun time of the year. Like, as we're recording this, we have the Hall of Fame game tonight. That's on Thursday. And then we're going to start getting preseason action. So I can see in our Discord, our DFS channels are starting to light up with activity. And I might have been looking at week 1 salaries yesterday.
Yes, week 1 salaries are out. That was one of the highlights of last week. After we recorded, they came out, and I got to say, man, I haven't had that feeling in a long time. You know, just
You felt alive?
The dopamine hit, it was real. And I might have reserved a contest or two. I mean, don't judge me,
I did
okay?
too.
But yes,
I'm
looking at the salaries, and week 1 is always its own thing, which we will talk about obviously in a lot of detail when we get there. But the salaries are crazy, and it's basically a pick'em. So it'll make for an interesting conversation when we get to early September. But man, that's like, there's a few signs that the NFL is close. One is obviously the main show goes to 5 days a week in August. It's go time. The other one is training camp highlights on our timelines over and over and over again. And then week 1 salaries are released. I mean, that feels like a holiday.
Yes. And then we will have episodes in September where we will preview week 1. We will preview the showdown game between Seattle and New England, which will be fun. I know that's on a different day of the week than normal, but that should be great. And then week 1 DFS. So right around the corner, really, really good. Glad you're with us. I did want to give you a little task at the top if you're listening to this podcast. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, sometimes they do this, like every couple of years, where if you have subscribed to the podcast, they all of a sudden unsubscribe you at the worst possible times. Like for us, this is go time in August. So if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you go subscribe. And if you want to leave a review, that's great. But just check your subscription, because sometimes they take it away. Like my mother. Oh, she subscribes to the podcast. She's still subscribed. But there could be people out there that are out there and no longer subscribe to the podcast.
Now, did she have to resubscribe?
No. She was one of the few, the proud, the fortunate.
Ones. All right, good for her. I would truly hate if your mother missed one of our shows.
Yeah, and one of our premier listeners. So make sure you do that for us. I did want to talk recent best ball adjustments before we talk our lessons learned. We've had some news. Things have changed. We've had some players hurt. I saw the Jalen McMillan news today, which was kind of like, that's a bummer. But I think the San Francisco news is where I want to start first. So what have you adjusted in your rankings with? We know Ricky Pearsall went down, so he's out of our rankings. But then we're dealing with Debo being signed, De'Zhaun Stribling's now, talked about coming back, but still a lot of issues with San Francisco to figure out.
Yeah, dude, their injury situation is insane for the second year in a row. So obviously the biggest thing, like you said, Ricky Pearsall out for the year. They signed Debo shortly thereafter. And I think trying to figure out where you want to have these guys in the ranks it's kind of tricky. Because for Debo, I think we can all agree he's probably not the player he used to be in San Francisco when he was outlier efficient. We've seen his yards after the catch per reception drop in literally 5 straight seasons. He's just not the same explosive talent. But at the same time, when you think about Mike Evans in kind of the traditional X receiver role, an unproven rookie in Stribling, and basically nobody else at wide receiver, I think Debo is going to play a ton. And so I think he's kind of fine where he's going to likely go, which for me would be kind of in that Khalil Shakir-ish range. What's the difference between Khalil Shakir and Debo Samuel at this point, right? You're just stacking with the offenses that you're betting on. I think he's fine where he goes. On Stribling, he's a guy that we were just lower on in fantasy land in general because of the lack of production profile that he had. Granted, the NFL seemed to be a lot higher on him than fantasy nerds were, and sure enough, he goes 33rd overall in the draft. So, if you weren't taking Stribling before, it can feel like you want to play catch up with a guy like this, where you're like, I have to get my shares, otherwise, he's gone, and then I miss out. These type of players that go probably higher than they should from a production profile standpoint as rookies, I'm usually very wary of, because, he would go at the 180s-ish, 170s, sometimes around there. And even then I was like, this feels like a really thin bet. If he gets steamed up into the top 100, which I think is possible, he's not there yet, obviously, that would be possible for me. That would be a fade situation. So right now I've kind of got those guys both in the 130s in my ranks. I'll adjust as ADP adjustment and such, but I'm not personally trying to chase these guys well up into draft boards where they're going to go higher than maybe I am on them as players.
Yeah, I'm actually even further behind where you are. I mean, Stribling right now is going 145th off the board. And Debo's fine. I have him at 141. I have him a little bit ahead of Stribling. But there is this creeping worry with this team, this offense. And I know a lot of this is induced by the constant every day, this person's injured, this person's injured. Also, by the way, here's 30 memes and 30, little jokes on your timeline about the substation. I've had this creeping worry that Kyle Shanahan teams kind of go through this ebbs and flows if you look at his teams, where they bottom out every couple of years. And I'm wondering if this is one of those years where like, okay, well, they said that Mike Evans is going to be the answer, but also they're betting on a player at this stage of his career. Same thing with George Kittle. Same thing with CMC. Like there are like, it's a thin team, and we saw how thin the defense was last year. So like, I look at my exposures. I've always loved Purdy, and I've had Purdy pretty high in my ranks. I even dropped him with this news a little bit. So my 49ers exposures are a lot lower this year than they have been in the years past.
They do feel insanely fragile. Like just kind of thinking about McCaffrey's workload last year, and just historically the trend on these guys in the year after that is pretty poor. He's another year older, right? Like I don't think you need to be full fading him, but I'll be lower than market in terms of my exposure on him in round one. And then I'm with you. Like just if you've been in these large field tournaments, whether it's Best Ball Mania, the Millie, what have you, like you're competing against teams that have some of these stacks with Debo in the 160s, 170s, Stribling in the 180s to 200 range, and those stacks, cost adjusted, look pretty good. But now you're going to pay a premium, on some of these guys that I'm with you, and then you throw in George Kittle off the Achilles. Trent Williams is another year older. What is he, 38 or something like that at this point? It just feels very fragile. I don't know. Like I always want to bet on these efficiency play callers, which obviously Shanny is, but like how he was able to keep last year's team together and make a playoff run is beyond me. Like the injuries they had last year was insane. So I think they're one of those kind of like regression candidate teams. And if you look up at the end of the year, nobody should be surprised if they won 12 games or they won 6. I wouldn't be shocked either way, basically.
I feel like that's painful for both of us to say because we enjoy Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, and we've kind of just seen the 49ers figure it out year over year. So that's kind of where I've landed in my rankings and where I've landed in my exposures. Let's go to Washington, the fallout with Stephon Diggs signing. How did you adjust with McLaurin, Diggs, Chig, and then Antonio Williams, who I feel like was a name that people wanted us to keep pounding the table for, and we kind of just had him in I had him in the 170s for a long time, and now he's even further back.
Yeah, I think this is pretty tough news if you've been an Antonio Williams truther, because a lot of the thesis on Antonio Williams when he got drafted was, well, they don't have a wide receiver too, so in theory, the routes will be there, the opportunity is there. But man, I don't know about you. I haven't really heard like anything in camp out of Antonio Williams, whether it be positive coach speak, big play highlights, whatever, like just kind of radio silent. And I think the signing of Stephon Diggs tells you a lot about kind of how they feel about Antonio Williams and the boys, Antonio Williams and Van Jefferson and Treylon Burks and the boys.
Tommy Brown.
Yeah. I think it tells you a lot about how they feel about that room from a starting wide receiver standpoint. And look, like, I think Antonio Williams is one of those round 18 to round 20 guys now that is like, hey, maybe he could spike late in the year. Maybe there's an injury, your game stacking for week 17, like whatever. Sure, you want to throw him in there? I get it. But otherwise, I'm pretty low on him based off of kind of what's transpired. I think Diggs, kind of similar to Debo, like should go in that like 110-ish to 120-ish range where those wide receivers are all similar bets. He was actually pretty good last year, over 2 yards per route run, coming off of his ACL surgery. I know he's another year older. His ADOT has dropped in back-to-back years below 10 yards, so you're not expecting any big play explosives out of him, but I think he can PPR his way there to be like a solid wide receiver 3/4 in best ball, and that's fine, especially if you're stacking with Jaden Daniels. So I didn't budge Terry too much. I moved him down a few spots. Obviously, Diggs earning targets over somebody like Williams or Van Jefferson. I mean, give me a break. So you should dock Terry a little, but the upside is still there. I think it helps Jaden Daniels a lot. So we've been bullish on Jaden all summer. Right. I'm going to keep drafting a lot of Jaden Daniels. But yeah, it's a pretty big hit, I would say, to Antonio Williams, obviously.
Yeah, I have Diggs at 109, and I look at the group of wide receivers that he's kind of tiered with. I know I'm a lot lower on him, so it's going to offend you, but Jacoby Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson, guys that are going to end up being second or third targets on their team, but guys that can give you flex-worthy weeks or at least usable weeks in best ball. I feel fine about that. Antonio Williams, last thing I'll just say, if you want to catch the Dynasty podcast, we had a really good discussion about rookie wide receivers and how we project opportunity on a lot of these day 2 wide receivers that it's like the first, month of the season, they're not going to see it. And you kind of are hoping that maybe they end up being the guy by like week 12. And so it was already a thin bet before Diggs signed. And then when Diggs signed, it looks even worse. So I probably won't be having a ton of Antonio Williams because we already knew he wasn't going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, or at least that was the most likely outcome. And I think this pretty much confirms that, barring injury.
All right, we got to talk Chig, though, because the area of the field is what like kills me the most, just the short area of the field where Diggs works. And we're a little behind ADP now on Okonkwo.
I've actually been pretty behind for most of the offseason, just especially like in the last like 2 or 3 weeks where like the buzz on Diggs was kind of starting to grow and you could feel that maybe the signing was coming. So I haven't
moved him.
You haven't moved him?
No, like I hadn't moved him this entire time. And now it looks like I'm really far behind ADP, but I'm like, I haven't been against this player, but I just feel like he's now in a spot where I feel like that's where he should go in my rankings. So it's like, it's one of those things where like I could keep going back and forth, but I just hadn't moved him at all. He's grouped with like where I had Gadsden, which was buried, and like Brenton Strange.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a few ways to look at it. One is like the addition of Diggs will help the offense, I think. So maybe Washington's better. They're in the red zone more. Chig is one of those guys who kind of falls into 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. And like if he gets that and he's going to go around pick like 150 or something now after the Diggs signing, that's totally fine. That's solid in best ball, right? As a tight end 2 or 3. I know that a lot of people are calling for the breakout with Chig here, but again, the same conversation on Chig was like, I mean, he could be the second option behind Terry. Diggs was targeted on 23% of his routes last year, like still a very good target earner. And so I don't see that going away, especially in that short to intermediate area, like you said, with Chig Okonkwo. So he's fine. Like, right, he's fine. If you're stacking up Jacksonville, Washington for week 17, sure. If you have a Jaden team and you need a second stacking partner, sure. But I'm not going to get over or underweight too much on him. I think he's going to be one of those guys that we talk about this every year when you get later in drafts at best ball. At tight end, a lot of these bets are pretty much the same, where it's a route space play and you're just kind of correlating with what your team needs.
I did want to give you a couple more updates. I've been looking at the Giants offense a lot. Jason and I have almost gone through every single Jackson Dart drop back over the last year. So like 400 dropbacks. And I looked at my rankings and I realized that for most of the offseason, I've been behind on the Giants. Like Neighbors, I've been very far behind. Dart, I was fine with, but because I wasn't stacking with Neighbors, I just had him in this other tier where I wasn't getting a ton of him. I was behind Scattaboo for a while and I felt really, really bad about it when we started getting good news. But I'm looking at our rankings with Giants, and then I'm also looking at every single thing I'm hearing recently. There's a consistent drumbeat, and it's not a good one. It's like, this offense is out of sync. Matt Nagy is not as well liked. The play calls aren't exactly gelling with the team. And when I hear negative news like that, it kind of confirms. So I just wanted to ask you about the Giants. Like, in your exposures, maybe you can look that up too right now. I was like, is this a team that you have a ton of? Because I listed the top 3 guys, but then beyond that, I know we haven't been really taking a ton of the Darnell Mooney's or Malachi Fields. So it's the team that when we took their under 7.5 wins, I've just kind of held the line when they were the most bet team for the over. And I know I'm a stubborn person, but now I look up, I'm like, gosh, this feels right that this team's in the spot.
Yeah, I've been lower on all the Giants basically for most of the offseason. And when I say most of, I mean I still am wary of the situation. However, because of the trend of the health of Malik Neighbors, I've been trying to not play catch up, because I think we can be really, this is crazy to say, Kyle, you're going to be shocked. People are very reactionary to the most recent thing that they've seen. And when everything was so negative, he was falling in ADP, you scoop him up at a value, sure, totally fine with that. But now he's steamed up to the point where like on DK, he's often going 25th, 24th. In a draft I was in earlier this week, he went 20th overall. This is still a player coming off of a major surgery who has question marks at play caller, team level success, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been trying to like play catch up on Neighbors and not get overweight, but like get 6% or, something like that. But every time I'm in a draft, he just goes earlier than I'm willing to take him, which is like middle of the 3rd round. And this is going to be one of those slates. We talk about this concept in DFS tournaments. Like this best ball season is a slate. It's a DFS slate. And in this one, I'm going to be underweight and hope for the best. And it's not because I don't want him to do well. It's just from a price perspective. I'm taking Bowers over him. I'm taking Drake London over him, et cetera. So he'll be a tough one for me. And I hope I get some shares here where he falls to the 3rd, but it's looking thin. And then because of that kind of fallout, everybody was pushing up Isaiah Likely, I think artificially being like, well, if Neighbors is limited in the first 2 weeks, like Likely's going to eat. And Likely has been overpriced, in my opinion, all offseason. Again, he's like, what's the difference between Isaiah Likely and Chigakonkwo? I don't know. They both have a mobile quarterback. They both could, in theory, be the second or third option on their team. Like, I don't know. So I think Likely's been overpriced the entire time. Now that he might fall a little bit, I'll get a couple shares with the Malik Neighbors kind of health updates. But yeah, the running backs are tricky. Like, I love the way Cam Scadaboo scores points. Like, he's going to get goal line roll. He will catch the football. So I don't want to be full fading, but I'm going to probably just kind of come in line around 8% and hope for the best. But yeah, I saw, like you said, the Giants are the most bet team for over 7.5. And the fact that we're on the other side of that makes me feel pretty good. I'm just a little wary of like the Harbaugh years. Are we out of the peak Harbaugh years, and Matt Nagy and Greg Roman and the boys and Brian Callahan scheming up the offense? I don't know.
Where do you feel like those guys are going out for like their little coaches lunch, like Denny's?
Did you try to find the most insulting chain restaurant of all time?
I
mean, they're not going to Chili's, obviously.
No, they're not having a good time, but like, I may have been to Denny's once in my life.
Dude, I don't think I've ever been.
I don't think we're missing out, but maybe somebody, you can let us know. Not a sponsor, by the way. Denny's, not a sponsor. I did want to give you one more update. There's a group of wide receivers that I love drafting in the, let's just call it the third round, once you get past 25. And I kind of have a bunch of them clumped together, but I realized that I had one of them above the others in my rankings, and it was Tedero McMillan. I know I've had a couple listeners point that out. And yeah, I've adjusted some of my rankings where I just look at where some of these guys go, like Buka or Neighbors, who goes 27th overall, but I have him in the 30s. Flowers, Waddle, Tedero McMillan. So that was a change. I was like, I like McMillan. I like the talent, but I don't need to be this much more bullish in my rankings. So he's kind of clumped together with a bunch of these guys. Now, Rashee Rice still buried in my rankings.
Are you just out?
At this point, I don't feel like he's the piece that you need, but what do I know?
He's been the piece you needed, but also not the piece you needed for like 3 years in a row.
So you have him at 29. He's going 25th overall. Is 25th, you're saying, just still too expensive for you?
I mean, I think the Chiefs are telling us that they're going to be different this year. Don't you? Like,
that's part of my point.
Yeah, they bring in Ken Walker. They didn't pay a running back for years, and there's some questions on the health, and he's been so volume dependent. It's just like, hey, if the volume comes down at all, even if it's, I don't know, 10 percentage points of a pass rate, which would be kind of drastic, but also possible with your quarterback coming off of ACL and LCL surgery. Like, I don't know. So there's just so many guys in there that I think the upside case is really compelling for Zay Flowers, Emeka Ibuka, Lab McConkey, like Blake Neighbors if he falls in that range, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been previously like very, very bullish on Rice. This year I feel lukewarm, and I'll probably come in 6 to 8% and, live with it and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm at 1%.
Wow, full fade, Rashee Rice.
Well, when I have somebody in my rankings, and I know some people don't like that, like, I don't like having a percentage that low. I did it last year with Terry, where Terry was just like, I'm not drafting Terry.
He wasn't even on the board for you.
It was just so far down in my rankings that's just the way that it's going to work. Like, the other player that I feel like I've been the most bullish on is McBride, but at least McBride's ADP has dropped over the last little bit. We're like, okay, I'm cool with where McBride goes now, but I have so much Bowers from the early part of the summer that, like, I've kind of made my bed, and, I'll probably make it up a little bit with McBride here, but I don't like giving advice on a podcast for people saying I'm this bullish. I'm not, I'm fading this player and putting him at 2 or 3%. But you know what? I'm not going to be an 8% kind of guy.
Yeah, that's fine. You have morals. I'm a coward. It's fine. The nice thing about the Malik Neighbors rise, though, is you are seeing some guys fall because of that. Like, obviously, if somebody comes up, somebody else has to come down. You're seeing, Ibuka falls a little bit further than he used to. Flowers falls a little bit further than he used to. Rashee Rice, even. Trey McBride in DK, I just took him 30th overall, and I was like, okay, well, at this price, I'm in on McBride, So your takes and how you approach best ball is so important that you're focusing on the time of the year and what the market is giving you. Like, do you remember the first season in Green Bay with Josh Jacobs? We came on the show in like May, and I was like, dude, I'm not drafting him at this cost. And then like a month later, I was like ahead of ADP in my ranks because everybody felt the same way and he fell so far to the point where I was like, I guess I'm taking Josh Jacobs now, right? So you want to not be so dogmatic with your takes in May and June when you get more information in August. And sometimes these falling values, you just look, if the market's going to give it to you, you take your shares here and you kind of hope for the best.
Just
scoop the value, man. Scoop it.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
When you're a maintenance engineer in a beverage manufacturing plant, you keep production lines moving and quality on track because there's no room for slowdowns. With Grainger's vast selection of high-quality motors, sensors, belts, and hard-to-find parts, you can get what you need fast and all in one place, so nothing gets in the way of getting the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You and I were reflecting last week on 6 years of us doing this podcast. The podcast that almost didn't happen, right? That just almost went into the ground. So I like episodes like this because we get to come back. We've had an off season to kind of look at things. And while we mostly talk about best ball and props, during this off season, like I love coming back to DFS and remembering like this is how we got started. This is kind of like the bread and butter. This is what people listen to during the regular season. So it's kind of nice, but 6 years.
It's crazy, man. And like you said, yeah, the best ball scene has blown up in like the life of the show. Like when we first started the show, we didn't even talk best ball. And then like the second season, it like blew up in a huge way. But yeah, DFS is where the show is made. And it's so fun that like thinking about we're only a few weeks away from the first slate is super exciting. Or if, in theory, maybe some of us played last night for Showdown for the Hall of Fame game. In theory, hypothetically speaking. I would personally never, Kyle. Come on. I mean, geez. But yeah, the first real slate is coming up very soon.
You just love Carson Beck that much.
I mean, come on, man. I had to.
When you had a chance to tell your kids, hey, do you know Kenny Pickett's starting this game? Remember Kenny Pickett?
Eagles legend.
Great.
Kenny Pickett to you, sir.
Yeah. All right, let's jump in.
Don't forget to remember these things.
So Betz and I put together a collective list of some lessons we learned, some things we've been thinking about related to DFS and props. We're going to share that list with you and then also share some of lessons that our listeners shared with us in Discord. I did look at last year's list from this podcast. And I want to ask you the question, did you learn from what you shared? Or did you it didn't go that way? So one of mine was just a simple showdown contest selection advice, which is just like, I'm not great at this, and so I'm going to learn. I have to confess, playing Showdown is not the easiest for me in like what my schedule is. So I end up just having a really low volume with Showdown where like Betz will check in and be like, hey man, who do you got tonight? I'm like, dude, I didn't even have a chance to make a lineup, or I only did single entries. So I still feel like I'm going to learn that lesson.
And that's just dad life for you right now, right? Like you have stuff going on right up until lock pretty much.
Oh, I mean, like I think about my schedule is the main shows every single day, no matter what, we have these. And then Betz and I have our other shows and, just gathering together everything we're doing. And then on top of that, when my kids get home, it's like, okay, I know we have baseball. So it was just like gathering myself to feel like I'm going to put forth the money that it matters. I just haven't done it. So, but I am excited because I do love Showdown when I play.
Yeah, Showdown is fun. It's its own beast. We'll talk about that in more detail from a strategy perspective later this summer. But it is one of those things that I brought this up last year where it's like, there's always another slate. And like, you think about what the NFL has done to us. Poor us, Kyle, what they've done to us. This year, it kicks off on a Wednesday. Turn it over, we got another game on Thursday. Before you know it, we're back to a full Sunday slate, Sunday Night Football, Monday night, and then you have the Thanksgiving and the Christmas and Black Friday, and like there's just always another slate. So I really think it's important. Like if you're playing DFS seriously, it feels like you have to play, right? Like I've got a reserve, I've got an entry, I've got to do this. But like we're all normal people, right? Like Kyle has life stuff going on. I've got young kids, and pretty much from like 4:30 to 5-ish onward until they're asleep, like that's all I do, with the kids. So it's like hard to sit here, but like before kids, it's easy to be like, okay, let's eat dinner together. I'm going to sit down with my laptop. I'm going to reserve my entries. I'm going to make sure that my exposures look clean. I'll be honest, those days are done, unfortunately for me.
Your NBA DFS days?
Oh, those were the days, man. Grinding news up until lock. Could you imagine? I can't imagine doing that right now. It gives me so much stress. But the point is, make sure that like DFS fits your lifestyle this year. Like there's always another slate. And I remember I told myself that last year, and I found myself at moments being like, oh, I didn't register, locks in 2 hours. It's like, it's okay, dude. There's another one tomorrow, no big deal.
Yeah. Now for me, like Thursday, I can lock into usually a Thursday or a Monday, but I cannot do Sunday night because it's like I have the slate of games that I've already like committed to for DFS. And then I think about like transitioning over to like family life, getting ready for the rest of the week. So like Sunday night, I love watching the game, and it's kind of refreshing for the first time. Like, okay, I don't have anything in this game other than my home leagues. So I purposely don't play Sunday Night Showdown, which I know is a little bit of a smaller slate for a lot of people in general too. I also talked last year about chasing the pace and how we often look at a game and say what should happen, but DFS is more of a game of what could happen. And I write up the pace of play article every single week, and I will do that again this year. And that's just something to keep in mind for me is like, I know what should happen, but you and I talk all the time. Like, what are the avenues? What are the routes of this game if it went differently?
Yeah, that makes sense. The second one I brought up last year was just when you're looking at results from the week prior or previous slates, like make sure you're not bringing hindsight bias into I should have done this, I could have done this, this is what I would have done if I knew this, because we're all making decisions before we have any information, right? Like you've got projections, you've got roster percentage, and you've got the contest you're in, and you can make educated guesses based off of your read of an injury or a coaching change or what have you. But like we're all doing this in a way we're kind of in the dark, and inviting a lot of that variance into what you're doing from a decision-making standpoint is really difficult to live with after the fact. It's so easy to be like, I'm kicking myself, I should have done this. Like if you felt good about your process going into the slate, and it was actually a good process, you were stacking, you had some low roster pieces in your GPP lineup, what have you, like sometimes you kind of just have to live with those results and then move forward to the next slate. And I think a lot of us too often just kick ourselves for what we got wrong when it's like, man, going into this, like if you're playing tournaments, especially very large field tournaments, the expectation honestly is that you will and should lose. And when you win, you should feel like lucky to do that, because it's hard to do that, especially week in and week out. Like there's going to be losses, there's going to be good weeks, but trying to look at that stuff in hindsight bias and saying this is what I should or could have done is sometimes it gets you in trouble. And I think it like adds stress to the weeks of DFS, I think.
All right, so Betz and I are going to give a couple of different lessons learned together. And I feel like this first one is the most interesting conversation that I don't see a lot of people having about DFS. And maybe people are too scared. And I feel like it does open up a good conversation on Discord. So let's start off.
Number 1
is this ain't your daddy's DFS anymore. That's what I'm calling it. Ain't your daddy's DFS anymore. And what I want to bring up, and Betz and I will kind of talk through it, is that what DFS is and how you play and how you respond to it is not the same as what it was. So just to give you a little history lesson, if we wanted to go here, just kind of going back, the early days of DFS, like thinking like 2009 to 2014, which for some of you guys, maybe you're around, maybe you weren't, that was like the wild, wild west of DFS of like, nobody knows what it is. Most people did not really know how to approach it in an optimal way. There wasn't really optimizers or anything. There wasn't even really podcasts of people talking about it then. You think about when the Fantasy Footballers started, it was 2015. So there wasn't like year-round content. Those are the wild, wild west. Then after that, you start to get people and ads on TV from about 2015 to 2018 where you get people that are professional DFSers. This is the lifestyle. This is what it is. And more than anything, like, do you remember our ads? Like our DraftKings ads, which friend of the show, but like I remember Peter Jennings or whoever on the TV showing that they won this game, or the Jonas Gray game that happened with the Patriots running back. Like that was on my TV, them showing how this person won in DraftKings.
Those were the days, the glory days of DFS, I would say, where prize pools were a lot bigger. It was marketed in a way where you could, I mean, you can still win a lot of money, but it was marketed in a way where like, come play it, that you can win all this money playing DFS. And now, dude, I can't even tell you the last time I saw an advertisement for DFS, whether it be social media, TV, anything.
I mean, I talked to Mike about this the other day. I said, Mike, when is the last time that you have seen this? He's like, I have no memory of when this showed up on my TV or even just like in your app. Would you think of like the way the algorithms work now? You'd think maybe you get fed like, I don't know, DFS companies or whatever, but like an actual ad to play a contest in DFS is not really normal. So that was about 2015, 2018 was like, I would say the peak of like DFS is a big deal. And that's when I got started. Yeah, I know you did too.
Yep. That's when the podcast started.
Yeah. So about 2019 to 2023 is when Betz and I started rolling around in terms of making content for it. But also is when after 2020, you started to see a rise of people getting interested in props, in best ball for sure. I feel like 2020 helped best ball rise a ton. And then more importantly, the legalization of tons of different forms of gambling in all these different states. So that is like a big deal in itself, where before, if you ask people, do you play fantasy sports? It would have been redraft, it would have been dynasty, and it would have been DFS. Like those were really the three things. And now when you ask people, there's the other part, like, oh, you play fantasy football? Oh, so what do you bet on? That became added to the conversation.
For sure. And I think the other thing too about that from their like the DFS lens of what DraftKings and FanDuel and these other sites are trying to get people to do is like maybe they first kind of got you on as a DFS player, but they would love if you would move over to the betting side, because the truth is almost everybody loses in betting, right? Like that's just the truth. There's a small subset of people that win. We hope if you're with us in the DFS Pass betting the right props, you will win. We've had success, but like in general, people lose, and they are now on your TV. You used to see a DFS contest, ad. Now you see anything. If you turn on an NBA game, all you get hit with every commercial break is come bet this SGP, come bet this parlay on
Kevin
FanDuel
Hart
or DraftKings. Yeah, exactly. And now you have celebrities in these betting promotions and stuff. So clearly, like they are trying to acquire more bettors, and as a result, you're just seeing less DFS focused from a contest size, bankroll allotment to some contests. And I'm not saying that's necessarily like going to kill DFS or anything, but just like the book's priorities right now are not DFS. It is betting and prediction markets.
Yes. And I love, like, there's been really good perspective from people in the fantasy football industry, like Adam Levitan, longtime, DFS person. Like he says, this is still my favorite form of fantasy in terms of competition and the way that it works. Because yes, you can place a bet with your friend, do a parlay or, but a lot of that is like peer-to-peer, just one-to-one. This is like, I want to figure out if I can win this tournament and think through it in a way. So it has its own challenge. The biggest challenge for DFS right now is like the average person that is in college or post-college and they, I want to get further into fantasy football or further into stuff. The barrier for them to learn DFS is so much harder than somebody clicking a button on their phone, just saying like, I'm going to bet. So that's part of it. When people ask me, I had a question the other day, like, hey, why are the contests not as big as they used to be? Or why wouldn't people continue to be spilling over to DFS? Look how big fantasy football is. It's an education thing. It's a barrier of like, oh man, I don't understand the salary constraints, or it's just easier for me to do this. Now, what Betz and I are interested in the conversation is not what's the future of DFS, but more of how does this change how we play now in 2026 compared to how we played in 2019? Because it does change things. And I would say the biggest change for me is people don't pick up my head-to-heads as much.
Oh man, that's not as fun.
And they see me in the lobby.
Well, it's because your new haircut.
That's part of it. But like what we really mean by that is like we tell people every single year, we used to do a strategy episode and we'd say, create your own head-to-heads. You get softer competition. I found over the years that not only do people not pick up my head-to-heads as much, but also everybody else is creating their head-to-heads. And so it's like everyone knows to do that type of practice. The competition is not quite as soft. It does not mean that cash isn't beatable.
That is a good point to end on with some of this conversation, because I think the way that we framed it, we're talking is like, hey man, like DFS is dying. Like, no, it's not. Like, there's still plenty of contests available on multiple sites. There's still a lot of entry points for whatever your bankroll is. Like, it's still alive and well. It's just that, like you're saying with cash, I remember there'd be so many funny weeks where it's like, you know, you log in, you post a $5, $10 head-to-head, whatever, somebody picks it up, and like every Sunday afternoon I'm screenshotting it and sending it to you, like, dude, this person played the third running back on a team and like they had projected for 4 points. Like, what are we doing here? And it was very, very soft. As with anything, whether it's, you know, a market-based scheme or a DFS or betting, the longer it's around, the harder it gets. Like, people catch on, they learn the rules, they learn how to play the game. And so, just like you're saying, I have not had as much action in head-to-heads that I used to have. I used to have so much in terms of my weekly bankroll in head-to-heads because I thought I had a really good edge. I was able to get a lot of people to scoop what I was posting. And now, like, I spend at least a good 20 minutes before every 1 p.m. lock on the East Coast just canceling the ones that didn't get picked up, because fewer of them are getting picked up, especially later in the year. So I think it's important to have that realistic conversation. Like, we used to talk about this on the show maybe 3 years ago. It's like, if you just do these few things, you will probably have a pretty good year in cash overall. You might have a down week, you might have a really big week, but like over a long sample size, you'll probably be pretty good if you just do the simple things. But now everybody's doing those. And like you said, not as many people are scooping those head to head. So my volume has come down quite a bit in the last year or two.
Yeah, Betz and I were kind of comparing and talking and saying, like, I feel like the common denominator here is I don't have the same amount of volume that I used to play. Like, I still feel like I'm putting together winning lineups. I also went back and looked at the cash line since I've been writing my cash review article. Last year, the average cash line was almost 145. That's really, really high. And part of that is we've figured out a lot of the best plays and there's more content than ever. In years past, it was more like 130. So I don't know exactly, like someone might say like, I shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. We're not trying to be black and white. We're just trying to paint the picture of like, here's where things are at so that you can kind of adjust your bankroll and adjust what you're doing. Like, I still play, I love 50-50s. I think that's like the bread and butter of what we talk about on the podcast of like, hey, there's these 1,000 people. Even those are down, like the $25.
Yeah, share those
entry.
numbers, because this was actually very surprising.
In 2023, if you played the $25 single entry double up, which I would say is the, I don't know, that's the contest when I think of double ups. That's like the prime one. There's the $10 ones and the $5, but $25 single entry on DK. In 2023, it was about 7,000 entries in week one. The next year, it was about 5,000 entries, and then it slowly moves down. And then this past year, it started off in week one at just 3,600 entries. So in other words, the $25 contest in week one has opened at almost half what it used to be, and it will continue to die down as the season progresses. So I would just encourage you, if you're playing double ups, you can use the $25 one. I would just use the $10 one as a good gauge of like how I'm doing, because it has a little bit more entries than what it's been doing. But those are like the contests that we talk about all the time. Our ROI that we talk about, you know, on the podcast, we give it for our props. Like Betz has done really well. I had a down year, I think it was the year before, but it's like, it's just different than what it used to be. And keep that in mind. My last little point is also this. We also have lots of people creating lineup trains, like as in copy my lineup. So it does create a different system when you look at so many lineups getting duped in cash.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, before there was as much content around DFS, and projections are getting better, and like every year projections are getting better and better, right? Because people are back testing their projections and making sure that it's actually spitting out information you want. Whereas before, it's like, man, if you just don't make mistakes, you'll probably be fine. You'll probably win, most of your head-to-heads. But now it's like everybody's using optimizers, everybody's using projections, and there's big providers out there. And sometimes you'll see people, whether that's in their Discords or on social media or whatever, like just sharing the lineup that they're playing. And people are like, I like that lineup. I'm going to play that too. And before you know it, you're a 1v1 away in all your head-to-heads. And that's not how it used to be. So again, just something to consider. I think the edge in head-to-heads and double-ups is shrinking year over year. I personally have still done quite well in terms of ROI. It's just that I don't have the same volume like we talked about earlier. So those are things to consider for your bankroll this year. Just understand head-to-heads and cash games are not what they used to be in DFS.
Yep. I still love in our Discord channels, people get to talk out their lineup and talk through projections and just pick apart like, hey, why do you have this player? Have you thought about this? If you want to go down to this spot. And I love that. Like, I love that sparring, that back and forth conversation that you get to have if you are a DFS Pass member. So still good stuff. Still my favorite thing to talk about. Like on our podcast, just talking about a cash lineup and, if Cade Otton gets me the points I need.
If 4 for 50 is what you need from Cade, he will never let you down.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
When you're a maintenance engineer in a beverage manufacturing plant, you keep production lines moving and quality on track because there's no room for slowdowns. With Grainger's vast selection of high-quality motors, sensors, belts, and hard-to-find parts, you can get what you need fast and all in one place, so nothing gets in the way of getting the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
One sunny day, a honeybee was merrily buzzing through an orchard when she stopped to collect nectar from a mystery apple blossom. She passed that pollen along to a Honeycrisp tree, and months later, the sugar bee apple was born. Naturally sweet, with layered notes of caramel, honey, molasses, and the perfect crunch. The world has embraced the sugar bee apple, a pure delight for snacking and baking. Download our new free recipe book and find a store near you at hellosugarbee.com. Sugar bee apples, from bee to you.
Number 2.
All right, second lesson that I want to bring up. And this refers to tournaments. We'll have an entire episode on DFS tournaments coming up, but it says you don't have to bring it back, Jack. Betz and I have discussed this. We have articles on the website about our DFS checklist that if you are building a tournament lineup, you can also find this in our optimizer. There's things that generally you should do. And I think at this point, if you're listening to a podcast about best ball or about DFS, you understand stacking. And we kind of understand looking at all the Millie Maker lineups, for a long time, but this last year, 100% of them had a team stack in the lineup. 83% of them had a quarterback and a pass catcher together. We kind of understand you're supposed to stack. That's where the ceiling is. 89% had a game stack. Okay, so I don't really have to talk to anybody about stacking, but I did find it funny. I was doing a little digging, and I found on a really big website, which I respect people that do it, but like the headline was stacking is the single biggest edge in NFL DFS. And I just wanted to say, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, but now it's almost weird to look at a lineup and see it unstacked. It's kind of throws me off. So I'm not going to argue about stacking. What I want to argue, or at least give you some data, is that bringing it back from a quarterback stack, meaning running it back with a player from the opposite side, this past year at least, was not as valuable as it's been in the past. And I wanted to open that up for conversation. If you think I'm going too far on this, or you think in a large field tournament this makes sense, but 33% of the Millie Maker winning lineups had a quarterback stack with a bringback, which was by far the lowest of the checklist items we usually talk about in a winning lineup.
I have a few thoughts on this, and I don't have a black and white answer, which unfortunately I wish I did.
Course.
But I was kind of thinking about this through the lens of best ball. Every year we talk about it and what happened the year prior and descriptive stats and those sort of things. For a while, for years, right, it was 0 RB. If you're not doing 0 RB, you're not playing best ball the right way. And now in hindsight, we know that that's very silly. And for years, it was if you're not stacking and you don't have a bring back, you're not playing DFS the right way. And I'm sure to some degree that was true, but obviously at some point everything levels out, right? And when I think about how people have been trained to play DFS, especially if you're building with an optimizer, a 150 set, 20 max, whatever, or you just like to use it to kind of help you look at stuff from a hand build perspective, most optimizers will have in their preset settings that say, I have to have my quarterback stacked, I have to have a bring back. If I'm playing a running back, I want the same defense, correlate the Ravens defense with Derrick Henry or whatever. And so I'm just thinking about if everybody is, not everybody, most people are doing that in their optimizers and they have 150 lineups that all are doing the exact same thing from that stack perspective, is the edge just gone? And is there value in just saying what if what if the Ravens roll, but the Bengals that they're playing fall in their face? What if Lamar and two of his pass catchers are awesome, but, Burrow falls on his face and you didn't need Chase Brown and nobody mattered on the Bengals? There's games that happen like that all the time, blowouts and things like that. So I was looking back at my small field lineups from last year because I wrote the review every single week. And I'll be honest, it was a pretty middling year. Like, I ended up down in those contests overall throughout the season. Nothing crazy, but just I had like a good week and then 2 bad weeks and an okay week, nothing crazy. And I was looking at all my lineups and they're all stacked and they all have a bring back. And it's just so ingrained to me, like, this is what you do. You sit down, you make your checklist and you check off the list and you're good. And I think we just know that there's more chaos in the NFL. And there's a dichotomy right now in like really good, awesome play callers and good teams and a bunch of teams that are just not good. And so sometimes I think forcing a bring back is not optimal. I'm not saying there won't be times where you should do it and you want to do it, but I think sometimes we're so trained on like, this is the only way to do it. And the data is showing that's not the case.
You explained that perfectly, because the temptation is this game goes off and I need this stack and the piece on the other side that puts up the points for it. I was looking at a week where Trevor Lawrence was, it was the second half of the season when he was rolling, and they were playing the Titans and they crushed the Titans. Like, I think they won 41-7 or something like that. And it was like, you didn't need a Titan. In fact, like, anybody who thought about, hey, I'm going to bring it back with a Titan was probably burned. But there was also tons of combinations of lineups where people were stacking Trevor Lawrence with like Parker Washington and bringing it back with something else. So a lot of lineups get duped because of that. And it doesn't create the kind of leverage that we want. When I write my pace of play article every single week, we talk about these are the games that are going to go off. We're really just looking for a team that goes off. And yes, you want the back and forth affair. You would love it if you could, double stack and you have a bring back and you've condensed your offense and you get less things right. But the problem is a lot of times you don't need it in large field tournaments. Now, it could be different in small field, but I just get in the mode of saying, here's the pairing of the pass catcher. Now, who am I bringing it back with on the other side? And I'm just finding that I want to try to do that less, especially if I'm doing like a, 150 max or a 20 max. Like, I don't have to do it every single time.
For sure. And I was just thinking too, like, as you were talking there, like league-wide, scoring trends are down the last couple of years because of kind of this move in the NFL towards more run-heavy focus. Teams were kind of adopting defensively this too high shell type stuff, right? We talked about that. And that will come and go just like anything else that does as far as a trend. But like, league scoring is down recently. Maybe it bounces back this year or next year, but who knows? And so because of that, there are fewer games that are producing these, like, you had to have 4 pieces in the same game. Like, those outcomes will still happen, but they're fewer than they used to be, where, like we talked about on the show a while back, you were getting totals at 54.5, 55.5 at times. And now it's so rare to see that from a game totals perspective in betting. So just something to think about. Again, it's not saying you shouldn't ever bring it back, but just if you're stuck in the ways of I have to bring it back, I think we should adopt how we're thinking about that.
Yeah. And like I said, the number was last year only 33%. So of the things that we talk about in our DFS checklist, which you can search on the website, we have an article for it. 33% of winning lineups over 18 weeks had a quarterback stack with a bring back. It didn't mean that people weren't stacking, doing many correlations like the running back on one team or the wide receiver, but with the quarterback stack, I think we get too much into that.
Number 3.
This will be a quick one, and I feel like you and we totally understand this because this is our jobs, but like, you can have research analysis paralysis, especially when you start to get into the season. There is a certain point where we all go too deep, where Betz, he's charting everything, he takes over the spreadsheet mantra, and I'm just trying to live off vibes, but
stop it.
Dude, who cares about cover 3? Who cares about what they did in play action and what their targets per route run on play action versus cover 3? I'm joking right now, but whenever I find statistics that are meaningful, or at least like sound meaningful, descriptive, I just realize that there's so many small samples. Like when we talk about cover 3, I only bring out the most outlier of stats because at the end of the day, like, you're not going to see cover 3 more than 15%, 20%, 30% in a game. So it's like hard to make your entire argument for a player about their splits of what they're doing in this one specific coverage when it's like there's so many other factors in the game. And you and I talk all the time. There's ebbs and flows of like fantasy football statistics. We used to be, this is what the cornerback was, and here's who's their matchup is. I used to write that article.
Yeah, cornerback wide receiver matchups became this hot thing in DFS, and then it, recently has transformed to these like, what is your yards per route run against cover 2 versus cover 3 when, so and so is injured and off the field? Like, at the end of the day, I think we need to simplify this. Like, we've gone too far, I think. And not to say that there aren't points in the year where maybe you do have an edge in the way a play caller is working or a defensive, philosophy is working. But at the end of the day, like, what works in DFS is good projections, good roster percentage, and good roster construction. And then you're just putting those chips in and letting the NFL chaos unfold in front of you. And hopefully you have the right spike weeks for your guys in the right contest at the right time. It's funny. Like, I think about that with like even best ball right now. People are talking about Omarion Hampton's splits with gap schemes and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know, dude. He was just a first-round running back. He's talented. He's going to touch the ball a lot, and we like Mike McDaniel. Isn't that enough to be like, he's probably a pretty good pick, right? But we all love to go down this rabbit hole of all these fancy statistics, when at the end of the day, this is a volume-based scheme, and that's really what drives it. So they have a place, but I think we maybe have gone a little too far in one direction.
I was looking at those splits the other day for Hampton.
Oh, yeah? What'd you find?
Well, Greg Roman is like a man gap guy. So like it kind of does matter when you're moving over to more of a scheme-based approach with McDaniel. You're going to see fullback on the field. It does shift things, Betz. Wish you would
changes everything.
Open your eyes. But in best ball, it's like, how many, is he going to see a ton of touches? Or what we joke all the time about wide receivers is like, there's so many statistics. And at the end of the day, it's like target share. It's like, are they going to see 8 targets? I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. That's what it is.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Number 4.
All right. This is one that we say every single year, and I'm going to say it again. You have to prop it even when you're not hot. And I like going through this with you since we started the podcast and since we started doing props. It feels I cannot explain to you guys how bad Betz feels if like a prop doesn't hit. Like, it's one thing for his own bankroll and for his own kids and their college fund, but like if a player doesn't hit what they're supposed to do, they don't hit their under or whatever, like you are crumbled. Like you feel so bad when like your track record and our track record together over the years has been awesome and really, really good, but it doesn't always feel great, especially when there's ebbs and flows.
For sure. And I think we say this every year, like if you're going to take this seriously and you're going to try to sustain this for, 17 or 18 weeks.
Be serious.
Just be serious for a second. Can you, come on, through the playoffs. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. And, I used to get, and I still do get this way sometimes, where if we have like a 2-7 week, like Monday I wake up, I feel like crap, man. Like truthfully, because I know not only did I personally lose those things, but a bunch of people with us in Discord are riding, and it sucks, and you got to be transparent. And you're like, hey, we got this wrong. It is what it is. And that will happen this year. Like it
and Monica
will.
made you sleep on the couch.
I slept on the couch. Yeah, had a piece of toast for dinner because that's all we could have. But hey, you bounce back. You dust yourself off and you make an SGP from Monday Night Football. Okay, we're back. But in all seriousness, like those weeks happen. And if you enter this season and your thought process is every week this is going to be awesome and I'll be up 4 units. No, you will not. You absolutely will not, and we will not. And we don't try to like pretend like that's the case. Like you'll see stuff on Twitter and social media of like, we never lose. Like it's great. Come bet with us. Like we will lose, and there will be losing weeks. But if you zoom out over a big sample size, we will probably have a pretty good year. Back-to-back seasons of over 30 units profit, where there's monster weeks, there's terrible weeks, there's some pretty average weeks. But you're doing so many bets. Like we bet over 250 bets last year over the course of the season. Like you need to invite more volume into what you're doing to smooth out variance. If you chase your tail week in and week out, you're going to get stuck doing this and you're going to hate it and you're probably not going to want to do it anymore and you'll lose money. So zoom out, take the long view, and make sure you're practicing some good bankroll management this year. I just wanted to point out for people, they love when we take overs.
Yeah,
I hate when we take overs.
This is so important. I cannot explain like the part of the podcast. Like, please listen to this.
Okay, so last year we went 26 and 35 on overs. Small-ish sample size because we don't play a lot of them. Do you want to know why? Because we were on 112 and 64 on unders. Pretty much our entire bankroll is made up on unders. So they are not fun. Sometimes you're sweating in the fourth quarter, 1 or 2 more catches or whatever it is. But the truth is, we've done this 4 or 5 years in a row very seriously. They win way more than overs. So you can expect, if you're in Discord with us this year, lots of unders, and it's been profitable. So I think we've got a good system going, but I think the most important thing here is like you have to be realistic with your bankroll and be realistic about expectations, because there will be ebbs and flows weekly in up and down.
Number 5.
All right, we're going to finish off by giving some lessons learned from Discord. So a couple people get some great shout outs, and Betz, I'll read one. You can comment if you want. You can read another. I'll start with Matt Casey, 22. He said, bankroll management is so important for long-term DFS success. And while it might not be the most fun process, I want to track it even more in detail in 2026. We've had articles on the website where we talk about bankroll management. We've also talked in the past about a ladder system where you say like, hey, if this is the amount of money I have for the season or for this week, here's how I should use it. So it's not all GPPs and not all lottos. So we talked a lot about that, but there's a lot of great discussion, I feel like, with bankroll management. If you're interested in that in the Discord. Now, I do not encourage people to say, here's my budget. Like, you don't ever have to share that. Like, Betz and I don't share that on air, but you can at least like be honest, like, hey, how do you guys divvy it up? Like, how do you divide up what you're doing, your contest? People will be very gracious to talk about that.
For sure. The only thing I'll add here, just like anecdotally, when I've thought about a slate and I've analyzed what I want to do and how I want to attack it, like if I have already reserved those entries and like I just kind of stick to that stuff, I feel like I do better. When I'm like, 30 minutes before lock, like, what's one more tournament? Yeah, I'll just throw one more in there. I'm going to be honest, most of the time that doesn't work. So from a bankroll management standpoint, something to consider as well.
All right, you want to read this one from Eric?
Yes, DFS is hard to win, especially with all of the sim tools available. Your process can be perfect week to week, but it's impossible to predict exactly what will happen on any one slate. It's important not to get discouraged. Even the best DFS players in the world have losing slates. Just keep showing up with proper process to ride the variance wave. I love it.
The variance part is what I feel like most people either don't have the stomach for. So remember our friend, who could forget our good friend Jeff Greenwood, who remember one year was like a former writer, really funny guy, but he's like, hey, I really want to get into DFS this year. And we said, here's what you should do. And he says, nah, I'm going to do the opposite. And like within 2-3 weeks, he was done.
Yep.
It was great. And he was honest too. Like he was totally honest about it. This is from MB. Looks like he's a Giants fan. So sorry about that. Contest selection is key, especially
Says the Falcons fan.
I don't even care anymore. I'm just beyond it. I don't even care. Contest selection is key, especially for people just getting into it. People should be happy enough just to place in a Millie Maker. Follow the process that works. Know your stacks, bring backs, eat the chalk where it makes sense. And I would just say with contest selection, we have articles about that too, where we on the website have basically walked through like, here's a contest we play in, here's the ones we recommend. And then I just need to make sure I say this. We'll probably say it again in the next couple weeks. If you can't max enter the contest, you probably should not enter that contest. Now, the very first week, if you want to have fun in the Millie Maker because it's $5, go for it. But as that kind of goes up to 20 and 25, like don't feel like you need to like throw darts at that contest because it's such a low EV contest. But you have to understand which ones, or else you're literally going to go in your app and be like, ooh, that one's $3. Ooh, that one's $10. Ooh, I could do that one. And you look up and you're like, I just spent $80 and I have no idea what these contests are or the payout structure.
Yep, well said. Next one from Schmo, so good. Just says, a bunch of minus 600 legs in a parlay is not a good idea. Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably pretty true. It's so easy, right? You just throw in this heavy money line favorite, this heavy money line favorite. Oh, he's definitely going to have at least 3 catches. It's so easy. Just throw him in a parlay and you'll print. If it was that easy, we'd all be doing it and making a ton of money. Unfortunately, that is not how this works.
Yeah, I remember when gambling became legal in Phoenix or in Arizona, and like Mike was just throwing parlays left and right for fun. But there was this period where he was just always one leg short. And I had to explain it to him one time. I was like, it's not that just you coulda, woulda, shoulda, like you're one leg short. It will always be like that.
Yep.
Like you were fortunate to get these other 8 things right. Why would it be this next thing?
Yeah.
But remember when we almost hit that parlay in the Super Bowl?
Every year we almost hit one, right? And we never bet them on the show or in Discord, but for the Super Bowl every year, we let our hair down, have a little fun. But yeah, we've almost cashed like 4, which tells you everything you need to know about SGPs.
All right, last one here is from person of DraftKings.com. They said, keep things in perspective, keep grinding. The wins will come with time as long as you continue to put together plus EV quality lineups and find bets in the head-to-head lobby.
Okay, that's just rude. That is just rude.
Do you feel like you get bullied sometimes? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sometimes I do. Let's talk about it off air.
I've definitely had listeners that have like found me, beat me that week, which, it's going to happen. And they're like, I told you, man. I told you I could beat. I was like, do you know how fantasy football works? You're in control of none of this stuff. Anyway, I got put in my place too.
I'm going to skip your head-to-heads this year. It sounds like you're pretty soft.
We don't play against each other.
No, because we play a lot of the same plays.
And we literally talk through a whole lineup up until lock. But yeah, if you want to, that's fine. Like Chris Cash used to scoop up mine.
I'm going to scoop Chris's. He doesn't know anything.
All right, Chris will be on here in a couple of weeks talking DFS. We'll continue to talk about those. Make sure you hop in Discord. We'd love to talk to you guys. Betz, sign us off.
Yes, always good to be back this time of year. Not just talking best ball, but actually turning the page forward to DFS, which it's here, brother. It's coming up very soon. So yeah, hop in Discord, talk strategy with everybody in there all season long. Very valuable resource. We'll keep this DFS content going all August. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Walmart shoppers, meet the debit card designed with you in mind. The Walmart Money Card offers up to $75 cash back on purchases at Walmart each year. Early direct deposit, overdraft protection, and so much more. When Walmart is your everyday store, you need a card to match. That's the Walmart Money Card. Open your account today. The Walmart Money Card is issued by Green Dot Bank, member FDIC. Fees, terms, and conditions apply. Visit walmartmoneycard.com to learn more.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.